Risk Insurance and Management MARIM, being one of the MARIM Annual Conference Committee who represent UUM. Currently, she is involved in the risk safety and disaster risk financing research. So let us now invite Dr. Diara. Diara, the screen is yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Sham, Mr. Edmund, Dr. Alin, and all participants of Sintok Dialogue. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Very good afternoon. Selamat siang. Okay. Firstly, thank you, the organizing committee, for inviting me. So let me share my screen. Right. Is it visible now?
Yes, make it slideshow, Diara.
Yeah. Tidak pula. Sekejap dia. Okay. So since we are in the afternoon session, I decided to make my slides a bit colorful. Right. So I was approached by the organizing committee to approach this topic from a risk management perspective. So here it is, sustainable livelihood through a comprehensive social protection model, a risk management perspective. So I'm going to, this is the outline of my presentation. I'm going to focus on 4 key points in my presentation. Since I will be presenting this topic from a risk management perspective, then I think it's only fair to recap on the definition of the topics first, which is the sustainable livelihood and the social protection model. And then once we done with the definition, we should be able to see the relevance to the risk management. And then I hope I will be able to explain how does risk management fit into this topic with some example of risk identification process relevant to livelihood capitals and asset. And then I will introduce the social risk management framework and how does social risk management address the social protection and livelihood issue. So basically, this is the outline of my presentation today. So sustainable livelihood, the first concept in our topic today. When we talk about sustainable livelihood, the first thing is livelihood, the component of livelihood. To define livelihood, it refers to the capabilities, assets, and activities required for a means of living. So these are the things around us, okay, which include us as the human at the very core of the activity. So we are talking about the human capital, we are talking about the financial capital, social capital, natural capital, and the physical capital. So livelihood is about us and the things around us. And then when we relate livelihood to sustainable livelihood, it is about, we're actually talking about capacity to cope with and to recover from stress and shocks, to rebound. Okay, what are our capacity to rebound from threats, okay, from things that weaken or threaten our resources, okay, and how do we manage this? So that is sustainable livelihood. What do we have? How do we manage our vulnerabilities, our risks? Okay, so without undermining the natural resource base. So how do we make it last? So that is the main issue with sustainable livelihood. Okay, so when sustainable livelihood, this is an important concept because it is everything that revolves around us, and it is the asset, the capital, the infrastructure, the social, the economics well-beings of the community, and this is all included in the social livelihood frameworks. Okay, and the social livelihood frameworks, okay, it is this a framework that capture everything. Okay, a holistic approach that capture the relationship between different aspects, its resources, the threats, policy, the strategy, and also the outcome at an operational level. So if you can see, at the very core of the framework is the sustainable capital, the human, financial, natural, physical, and social. So human capital is us, but then it is far more. It is our knowledge, our skills, our expertise, our health, and our labor skills. It's not just us, it is the skills that we carry with us. Okay, and then the financial is the financial resources that we have, and then the natural capital is about the water resources, forest resources, grazing and land, and then the physical capital related to the infrastructure, and the social capital is about rules, trust, regulations, safety, security, ethnic, everything. So that is the core of the framework. And then added to this framework are the threats that we face. Okay, that the threats that we face, which is the vulnerabilities. So the vulnerabilities are further categorized into two, which is the calamities or the disaster and disease. So this is basically the two major groups of vulnerabilities that we face. And then to address these vulnerabilities, we have policies and institutions. We have the government, we have policy, we have law, we have culture, we have beliefs, those addressing all those vulnerabilities. And then we have all those strategies. All these are interrelated, so for us to achieve livelihood outcome. So we are looking for a better quality of health, relationship of trust, safety, security, better infrastructure, food security, better income. So this is the gist of sustainable livelihood framework. So it is very important for us to understand that sustainable livelihood framework is everything about us and things that evolves around us. Okay, and when we talk about how do we cope or recover from vulnerabilities, those things can come both from internal and external factors. Okay, the shock, the stress can be both from internal and external factors. Like the situation that we are in now, we are indeed in a very vulnerable situation from the external factors threatened by pandemic risk. So thus we have all these policies, we have all these new rules and regulations just to make sure we could achieve livelihood outcome, sustainable livelihood outcome. Okay, and then the other component of the topic is social protection. Social protection is an international agenda. Okay, and social protection is related to the sustainable livelihood framework, where this social protection focus on to help individual household to manage risk and vulnerability, to protect them from poverty and destitution, to provide support to the poorest and vulnerable members of the society, to help them to meet their basic needs and to reduce the impacts of economic downturn and shocks. Okay, so as an international agenda, social protection is the social protection model is like it plays a key role for social, economic, and political development in terms of under the social function, it focuses on reducing poverty and inequality. Under the economic function, it focuses in reducing the vulnerability of low-income households to risk. And under its political function, it focuses to contribute to social inclusion, to build social cohesion and stabilize the political and social system. So at the end of the day, it is about inclusion and cohesion. So no one should be left behind. It's about fair and equality in the system. And social protection, it is about taking consideration all people, individual, household, communities at all level. Okay, the micro and micro level. Okay, so the government agencies, international agencies, they propose a social protection model, which is consists of 3 levels. Okay, like this. These 3 levels, we have the floor, the mandatory level, and the voluntary level. So under the social protection model, protections are offered in layers, focusing on individual and household income. So at the very basic is called the floor. And at the floor protection, it focuses on 4 essential guarantees. So these 4 essential guarantees covers a basic set of essential social rights like universal access to essential healthcare services, child benefits to secure nutrition, education and care, pension for all people at old age or with disability, and social assistance and employment policies for people in active employment age. And on top of these 4 essential guarantees, we are also guaranteed physical and financial access to all citizens for water and sanitation, education, housing, and other benefits as well. So this is the floor protection, in a way, basic guarantees. And then the second level is about mandatory social insurance or the social security benefits of guaranteed level for contributors. This is focused on people in employment. So perhaps later on, Mr. Edmund will be talking about this, the social security benefits. And then on the top level is voluntary insurance. This is where the commercial products come in, commercial insurance, community-based insurance, mutual product. So as it is on the top and it is voluntary, so it is optional. It is targeted for people who can afford it. So at the very bottom, the floor, it is basic guarantees. Everybody will definitely enjoy the same basic necessities. And at the top level, it is optional. So if you have extra money, if you could afford it, you could go for it. Extras are always best. So this is the social protection model. So this social protection model is indeed a comprehensive model covering all layers from the basic necessities to the optional ones. So when we understand this concept, the sustainable livelihood, the social protection model, we can start to place risk management in between of it. So how does risk management fits into the topic? When we talk about sustainable livelihood, we talk about social protection. The objective of those agenda are the same. We are trying to deal with risk and vulnerability. Okay, we are talking about human, we are talking about our finance, our social capital, our economics situation, we are talking about our surroundings and how do we manage vulnerabilities, how do we react to stress and shocks, things that threaten us. So we need to have a tool, we need to have an instrument to manage this. So the issues that rise in this social protection sustainable livelihood is that the number of risks, the nature of and number of risks increases and becoming more complex. So we are threatened to greater insecurities and vulnerability like COVID-19. It is so unexpected. We are so taken aback. Like now we said, it is a biological war. Okay, it is war. We are in the middle of a war, and it is a biological war, something that is so unprecedented. Okay, and then we are exposed to this vulnerability and shock. We need to do something about it. We need to address it. We need to live with it. So we need to have a method. How do we manage this risk? Okay, and then we need to manage these threats, these risks need to be managed at all levels, from the individual levels up to the community levels, up to the national levels. So risk management comes into picture as an approach, as an integrated approach to sustainable development and poverty reduction, where it gives an avenue for people, okay, to apply the steps, the processes, so that we know what to do. When we say we have to manage our risk and vulnerability, we have to do something. How? What do we do? What is the first step? So it has to be something. It has to be systematic. So this is where risk management comes in. The practice of identifying potential risks in advance, analyze them, and taking precautionary steps to minimize the risk. So in a very generic risk management process, we have 5 steps. And this is a very general, simple process. If you look at the guidelines or standard, you can find a 6-step risk management process, or maybe 5 steps risk management process. But let's stick to the basic. 5 steps, okay? And this risk management process is very dynamic, it's very flexible, it is applicable to all, okay? You just need to set the context, okay? What kind of risk you want to manage, what kind of situation are you looking at, and then you start applying this step. So the first step is to identify the risk. Like in this case, we want to identify the risk that threaten our social protection or threaten our sustainable livelihoods. Once you have identified the risk, you analyze the risk, and then the third stage is to prioritize the risk. We start to rank which one is more important, which one is least important, and then we start treating the risk. What are the techniques that we can use to treat the risk? And then we monitor the risk. So this is a continuous process over and over again. Okay, we start identifying again, reanalyzing, maybe we overlook things. So it is a dynamic, continuous process, and this is a very flexible, systematic process. So this is how risk management comes into the picture. So you have a good sustainable livelihood framework, you have a good social protection model, which focus. The aim of these models is to manage risk and vulnerability. So now you need to have a tool to do it. So risk management is the tool to manage risk and vulnerability. So in the next slide, I will show you a simple risk identification process, and I relate this back to sustainable asset. Okay, so in a very simple exercise, we have sustainable asset, natural capital, social capital, financial capital, environment, everything. So it is break into risk affecting individuals, risk affecting communities, and risk affecting nation. So micro, meso, and macro level. So on a natural asset, risk affecting communities, okay? Maybe a group of families like a town, pekan, bandar, okay? Like rainfall, landslide, volcanic eruption. So we identify that. And risk affecting the nation might be event that have a larger impact, like flood, earthquake, droughts, like that. Risk affecting health, okay? Health asset. So this will definitely affect us as an individual. So we are talking about illness, about injuries, about old age, about death, about disability. So these are individual risks. Okay, and social risks we associate that with crime, with domestic violence. On community level, we talk about terrorism, we talk about gang activity, where the impact of loss is larger. On a national level, we are talking about social unrest, we are talking about civil strike, we are talking about war, so forth. Okay, so these are a simple risk identification process that can be related back to our sustainable asset, like the environment, pollution, pencemaran, pembalakan haram, all those are risk to our environment. Okay, and that is can be related back to our natural sustainable livelihoods. Okay. So, yep.
Perhaps we have another like 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Almost
you.
done. All right. So the World Bank, in order to support all this sustainable livelihood framework agenda and social protection agenda, they introduced the social risk management framework. So this social risk management framework is about how society manage risk, and the focus is to manage income consumption variability, to manage the risk of poverty and vulnerabilities, and to build resilience to poverty over the life cycle. So over the life cycle means we have to consider all age, all people of all age, from infancy to old age people. So that is the focus of the social risk management. So the strategies to do this is through risk reduction, risk mitigation, and risk coping. So these are the strategies suggested by the World Bank under the social risk management strategy. So risk reduction and risk mitigation strategy is the pre-loss strategy. Before the loss happen, we try to do something. We take action before loss happen. So it is more like prevention. And then risk coping is more on the post-loss effort on our side. So what could be done before it happened? We try to prevent. Okay, we try to prevent the loss. We try to reduce the chance. How do we do it? Like education program, preparedness, and response action. So examples for risk reduction in Malaysia, in order for us to prevent the loss, we give access to health and medical facilities in government hospital to all citizens. Okay, and then risk mitigation, like during this current pandemic risk, we have series of MCO as disaster risk reduction strategy to mitigate the effect of pandemic risk. And for risk coping is how do we cope with the event? What happened after the event? How do we cope with the loss? So this is like macam backup plans, bantuan, assistance. So when things happen, we know people suffer losses, a lot of losses, depleted their finance, everything. So some strategies, we liquidate our asset to compensate for the losses. We try to reduce the quality of life. So on top of that, government assistance, government subsidy for post-loss assistance, like the bantuan khas COVID, the one that government give to people. So these are the things, strategies, okay, under the social risk management framework. So in this instance, we are actually enhancing and nurturing the social risk management. We are actually staying true to the social protection agenda, like nobody is being left out. So as a conclusion, all these sustainable livelihood, social protection, and risk management framework, model, strategy, approach, everything goes to one thing. We are trying to establish and secure social economic societies for the whole nation. Okay, so we are trying to make sure we could be able to create secure families, secure communities, where in turns we could create a stable societies. So how do we do it? we use social risk management as a tool for everyone to manage their risk. So when people have a tool to manage their risk, when people have a tool to manage their vulnerabilities, then they would be better prepared to manage their shocks and stress. So all of us need to learn how to manage our risk so that the impact could be further reduced on us and the nation. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jara, for highlighting us on the concept of sustainable livelihood from the perspective of risk management. So we will go back to you later in the second round because there's so much thing to discuss, because this is, I believe this is very interesting topic and very relevant today. So now we go to our second panelist, Mr. Edmund Chong. Let me introduce you to Mr. Edmund. Edmund Chong Peng Hua is currently the chief. One second. Edmund is currently the Chief Strategy and Transformative Officer of the Social Security Organization of Malaysia. Prior to this, he was the Deputy CEO of the Sokso Tun Razak Rehab Center and headed the operations for the Sokso Return to Work Department. He has been involved in developing the Return to Work program ever since the program was implemented as a pilot project back in 2005, and he has been part of the Sokso Rehab Center project since 2008. He was also instrumental to the development of Sokso's ICT core system, namely ASIS, and the employment insurance system, which successfully went live in the year of 2018. Edmund was responsible in overseeing the nationwide rollout of these two projects. In 2018, Edmund was also given the responsibility to be Sokso's project lead for drafting the national blueprint for social well-being alongside with experts from Employees Provident Fund, Bank Negara Malaysia, and also other social security agencies. The National Blueprint for Social Wellbeing is an initiative of the Deputy Prime Minister's Office in coordinating and improving social protection for Malaysians. He is currently a technical committee member of the Malaysian Social Protection Council, MySPC. So without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Edmund. So Edmund, the screen is yours now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sham, for the kind introduction. I'm assuming everybody could see my screen. It's a screen of people with wheelchairs, crutches, and so on with the Malaysian flag.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
It's very
Okay.
clear.
Yeah. So basically, let me see. Okay, all right. Basically, today I'll be speaking about the social security organization, the Malaysian social protection landscape, as well as understanding the whole situation in Malaysia. But before I start my presentation, I mean, what you could see on the screen right now is actually the map of Malaysia at night. I think it's a beautiful scene, and you could see that the concentration of lights are focused in the cities, in the various cities of Semenanjung, as well in Borneo, Sabah, and Sarawak. But when we talk about social security, it's all about distribution of wealth. We're talking about ensuring that no one gets left behind. But if I put this map together with this map from the from KRI, Khazanah Research Institute's report on household income, we could see that the concentration of lights are actually focused in the cities. Yeah. So as the light goes down, I mean, it's a little bit sad. Semakin malap that it becomes darker, the lower the income gets. So I think it's a very sad relationship. Yeah. So you could see that the concentration of light is mainly on Kuala Lumpur, and it somehow dwindles down in the other smaller cities. Yeah. So when we talk about social protection, I mean, we talk about social protection, most of the time people would relate it to the Social Security Organization in Malaysia, or PERCESO. Yeah. And PERCESO sees some form of action where we see we are paying about 3 billion for disability and invalidity every year. Yeah, it could be in terms of pension and so on. We also provide unemployment benefits, meaning that if you lose a job, we would actually compensate you and to help you get back on your feet again. Apart from that, for those sick people, we do provide lifelong medical benefits. We also provide lifelong rehabilitation benefits. We also provide vocational retraining, return to work assistance, and old age benefits to some extent, and also to the dependents. Yeah, meaning that people who suffer from a loss of loved ones, the dependents such as wives or children would actually get these dependence benefits. And to understand so further, we are a statutory organization established in 1971, and we are actually celebrating our 50 years anniversary. And 1971 was the inaugural Tun Razak speech on social security. So I think it's a very important milestone that this dialogue on social protection is being discussed this year. Currently, we're ensuring about 8.7 million workers from domestic workers, foreign workers, and formal employees, and even the self-employed now. And the contributions come from about 500,000 employers. SOCSO governs 3 social security law, which is the Employee Social Security Act 1969, the Self-Employment Social Security Act 2017, and the Employment Insurance System Act 2017. And when we talk about social security, it's all about the concept of sharing of risk and pooling of resources. What do you mean? What do we mean by sharing of risk and pooling of resources? Basically, the healthy people put together a sum of money to compensate for the sick. Yeah, those who are working compensate for those who have lost their job, and for those who are fortunate would actually compensate for those who are fortunate. Or it could be the productive group, which is the working group, compensating for those who are not productive at all. So these are the ways that social protection works. Basically, if you go back to the history of social protection, as an Islamic country, we would be very familiar with the concept of Baitul Mal and so on. So it's a very similar concept. But what Dr. Daria said just now, social security is about shelter, health, housing, nutrition, and so on. So social security actually acts as a buffer to support people when it comes to housing costs, rentals, transportation, cost of living, school fees, utility bills, food, and so on. So these are actually the fundamentals of social security. And social security comes in various layers, which we will talk about in a later part of my presentation. When we talk about social security, we always, at SOCSO, we always refer to the ILO convention, the International Labour Organization's Convention 102, which speaks about the social security minimum standards, which was established back in 1952. So when you talk about Convention 102, it has about nine main pillars of social security, which is the medical care, sickness benefit, unemployment benefit, old age benefit, employment injury benefit, family benefit, maternity benefit, invalidity benefit, and the survivor's benefit. So if you look into the Malaysian system for medical care, we of course have we are proud with our universal health system, which is done by the Ministry of Health, and all Malaysians are actually covered from it. And when you talk about sickness benefits, again, all Malaysians are benefited through the Ministry of Health. And when it comes to unemployment benefit, the formal sectors would actually be covered under SOCSO. The self-employed, they do not have any coverage. And we talk about the old age benefit. Yes, the private sector, we have the EPF, the government side, we have the pension system. But what about the self-employed, the informal sectors, or those without any employment? So when it comes to old age, they might have a problem. When it comes to employment injury benefit, the formal sectors are protected. The informal sectors are actually shrinking because with the introduction of Act 789 for the self-employed, we are now covering them. And of course, family benefit, it comes from social welfare. All Malaysians have covered. Maternity, the private sectors are actually covered by the Employers Act 1955. And of course, the unfortunate part is that the self-employed, the informal sectors, no employment. When you have any problems with, when you are pregnant, you are actually not eligible for any benefit. And of course, the invalidity and survivors benefit, you are actually covered under SOCSO. Yeah, that means for the private sector, and the public sector, you have the ex gratia system. So Convention 102 itself is the minimum social security standards that we always try to look into. But looking from it, in Malaysia, the self-employed and the informal sectors have actually problems in having some coverage lah. So meaning that our social support system, like when Dr. Daria mentioned at the lower net, not all Malaysians are actually covered or supported with this social support. So in terms of issue and challenges in Malaysia, we see a fragmented social protection system. Yeah, the fragmented social protection system is one of the reasons that we need to actually look and address. Basically, what I'm saying is that when it's fragmented, you have a lot of agencies, like, we have SOCSO for employment injury, for employment insurance. We have also EPF for old age. And for those who are not covered by this net, we have the welfare. And sometimes people actually go to, because of the fragmentation, people go to other social security agencies like Zakat and so on. So what we do not have a system or an agency to coordinate the whole thing, but with the introduction of the Malaysian Social Protection Council, headed by the Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, I think we would see some improvement in this fragmented social protection and some reforms coming to place. And apart from the fragmented social protection system, it also, because we are so fragmented, it leads to the duplication of the benefits and aids, meaning that sometimes we do see cases where people who are injured getting wheelchairs from SOCSO, also getting wheelchairs from Kebajikan and Zakat, but sometimes we have problems where people don't get anything at all. So these kind of things needs to be addressed so that we will not have any wastage or leakages in terms of providing social protection. It means that we need to provide social assistance to those who really need them. Yeah. And apart from that, one of the challenges that social insurance system, you see, when you talk about social security, Dr. Daria did mention about the triangle structure, where the floor, the social insurance part, which is the middle, is actually supported by mandatory contributions if you are in the working class. And of course, the net is actually paid by taxes. But with Industry 4.0 and automation and robotics, we are also seeing that the number of workers, if you look on the picture on the left, it's actually a Ford factory, which was mainly manned by workers. And if you look on the picture on the right, you mainly see robots manufacturing cars. When you talk about social insurance, it comes with mandatory contributions. That means every worker contribute a portion of their salary to make sure that we would be able to protect those who are least fortunate. But with automation and robotization, the workers are getting lesser and the people contributing to the system are getting lesser. So it is definitely a risk to social protection or social insurance systems. And back in 2016, there were also talks in the European Parliament, especially in the Bundestag, where the Parliament's Committee on Legal Affairs submitting a draft on 2016 to propose that robots to be categorized as electronic workers, and companies employing them as workers should be required to pay taxes for social security system. So these are the things that we are hearing in the movements in social insurance systems. But apart from that, social insurance is another form of risk as well. I mean, if you look into this picture, what do you actually see? Yeah, what do you actually see? You actually see, I would say, you would actually see a kite maker. Yeah, this is a typical picture of a man making a Malaysian kite, or the wow, and we have questions whether if this person is a formal or informal worker, is he part of Industry 4.0? Does he need to work for life? Because if a person like this in old age, like what I share with you on Convention 102, he might not have any EPF saving. Yeah, so the question is that, does he need to work for life? What if an accident happens? He does not contribute to any form of social protection. So is not going to be there to protect him. And if he gets injured, does he have any benefits to be retrained and to go back to work to actually earn an income anymore? So these are the questions that we ask about. And looking at that would be the new group of people, or the self-employed, the people who are coming from the self-employed informal sectors, or the freelancers that actually is in the Malaysian workforce. So if you look, if you take a look at this slide here, on 2016, yeah, this would be the household incomes according to the groups. If you look at 2016, 63% of income comes from paid employment, meaning that it comes from a formal employment where there is a master servant or a master worker relationship. 15.6% comes from the self-employed, and the other 12.9% comes from property and so on. But what I would like you to highlight, to look here, is the 63% and the 15.6%. And on my right here, we have the breakdown of the Malaysian labor force, meaning that in Malaysia, there's an estimate about 22 million people in the labor force. 6.8% are actually from the private sectors, and about 13.5% comes from the self-employed, informal, or freelancers, and the 7.73%, 1.7 million of them comes from the civil servants. But if you look down into this part, the income from the self-employed, which is a small amount, which is about 15.6 of the total income of household, comes from this 13.5%, which is the big group down here. Yeah. So the thing is that there is 13.5 million earning about only 15.6% of the household income. So in this case, are they earning much lesser? And if they are earning much lesser, are they contributing to any system? Are they able to afford any form of insurance, old age savings, and so on? That's also questionable, because in this particular group, when it comes to EPF, it is voluntary. When it comes to self-employed, it is still, social insurance is also voluntary. For the 1.7%, well, those people are actually covered with pension systems. They are quite guaranteed in old age pension. And the 6.8% here, they would have earned quite a bit of income and also be having some form of EPF savings. So these are one of the challenges or the fears for Malaysian social as Malaysia goes forward into the next era. So apart from that, the other issues and challenges would be the aging population. Yeah, where we are having an aging population. Like what I told you guys earlier, we are based on a social insurance system where the productive would actually pay contributions for those less fortunate. Yeah, and over the years, our demographics are actually changing. Yeah, and this is where we are talking about a sandwich generation. In those days, yes, the older generation takes care of their children, and then the children takes care of their parents. But today we have the sandwich generation where they will have to actually take care of the older generation as well as the future generation, meaning that you would see families taking care of older people as well as their children, and the dependents are actually getting more. So with this, it poses a problem with our social security system, where we may not have also enough productive workers to fund taxes, to fund the social protection system. And of course, old age poverty is definitely a big problem in Malaysia. As you can see, over the years, we have seen a lot of articles stating that most EPF members may not have enough savings, and most EPF contributors may exhaust savings at the age of 65. So this is quite evident because SOCSO provides invalid pension, and we are seeing applications coming at the age of 50, 55 because perhaps they are trying their luck. Yeah, and it would be seen as their only way to get some old age security. So this is definitely one of the bigger problems that we face. So in a nutshell, a social safety net is required for all Malaysians, meaning that we need to cover, we use the term, I think Dr. Dara used the term from the life cycle approach. I would say that we would need a social protection system from the womb to the tomb, yeah, or from the cradle to the grave. This would be the life cycle approach. Looking at the life cycle approach, if you look into this slide, this slide talks about the life cycle approach, where a person who starts his life as a child may start earning an income and live above the poverty line, yeah, and live above the poverty line. And there are cases where a person may go below the poverty line or to have suffered from a loss of income due to work injury, invalidity, death, or even loss of employment. So these are shocks. These are shocks that happen to our typical Malaysians, yeah. And of course, If they recover from the shocks, they would actually continue to earn an income, earn more than the poverty line, but at retirement, they may also live at below this poverty line. So basically what we are saying is that we need social protection systems to provide for this group of people, maybe not to the children, but families with children needs to be compensated or not compensated, need to be subsidized to support these children, because like Dr. Daria pointed out just now, that's important for nutrients, because if you do not provide enough to this group of children would end up being future Malaysians who are not healthy and sick, and we will end up spending more in healthcare when they are so much older. So these are the things that we need to look into on how we want to actually support these people during these shocks. And these are what we call the concept of replacement of income, for productivity. And most of the time people say that social protection or social security is expensive, but bear in mind, there was a report by the International Social Security Association. ISA is established under the auspice of the ILO, the International Labour Organization, and works closely with the United Nations. Social security has a multiplier effect, which is about 2.52 times. For every ringgit you put into the social security system, it multiplies by 2.52, meaning that if someone receives compensation or an allowance due to loss of employment, that one person may actually use that money to put into the economy, to spend money, and of course that shop would be able to buy more supplies, and with more supplies and demand, you will see that the factories would be able to produce more, and to produce more, they will hire workers again. So it's an economical concept that we need to actually address. And if you have looked into the COVID-19, Perkeso have helped the government to look into the PSU, the wage subsidies, the hiring incentive to actually support these businesses to ensure that we maintain jobs during these economic shocks. And to move on, if you look into this working age, we are seeing that all these groups are actually compensated, or part of them are actually protected by Perkeso. For those who are working, if you look into this group, they are actually mainly protected by SOCSO. But when you talk about children, some if they lose their parents, their mother or father due to an accident, part of them will be compensated. But if their parents are not compensated, most of them will be covered by the kebajikan system, the welfare system, which is mainly for our what we call the anak yatim piatu. And when we talk about the older generation, a smaller group of persons would actually be covered by SOCSO because of invalidity before the age of 60. So again, this needs to be looked at because there are bigger groups who are not being protected by SOCSO. So Dr. Dara used this model just now. Social protection comes into about mainly 3 tiers. Basically, there's 3 tiers, which is the social protection for, or the social welfare system, which is tax funded. So this is where everybody would be protected, school, water, and so on will be protected. Then for those who fall in this group are normally workers, workers who come into the social insurance system, where normally it has mandatory contributions. If you look into your payslip, you're from the private sector. If you look at your payslip, you provide into the social insurance system. So basically, the social insurance model is a self-sustainable system where it pays out benefits using the contribution. And of course, the higher layer, it's this private insurance. So there is this 3 layering that happens into this whole social insurance or social protection ecosystem. And when it comes to any shocks, the red line represents a person who suffers from shocks. Most people may fall into the private insurance. Well, if you have some private insurance premiums, fine, that would protect you. But if it's not enough, then the social insurance system would actually protect you. And of course, if everything misses, then you have the social protection floor, meaning that if the private hospitals reject you because you do not have any form of protection or insurance, then the government hospital would always definitely take you. But there are cases where we need to understand that the social protection floor is designed for the non-working or the non-productive population. Those who are not working, they should be covered from the social protection floor. For example, children, or housewives, Suri Ruma's housewife, who do not contribute to any form of system, they should be covered by this social protection floor. And when it comes to the social insurance, it's normally covered by the working or the productive population, and the above average group would actually buy for their own insurance premium. And and when you talk about the social insurance system, you will not be able to miss that when you have all this system. Imagine that if everyone drops out of the social insurance, there are, like for example, this COVID-19, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands and thousands of people who die. And if they do not fall into the social insurance, they do not have some form of protection, they would be caught by the social protection floor, which is the Ministry of Health net at the bottom, which you could see in the green color here. But if everything keeps on falling, the green structure down here might become too fat, and it will become too expensive to be funded by tax. Yeah, the tax system will be having problem. And of course, if the yellow portion shrinks, the taxpayers are also shrinking. So that is why there is also a need to have integration strategies to make sure that people who fall at this bottom, at this welfare state, to have integration strategies such as return to work programs to make sure that the disabled or those who have injured to be given proper training, rehabilitation, so that they could contribute again as workers. Yep. For those who have lost their jobs, yeah, if they are not any protected, they would need to be on some welfare system. And again, if it gets too bloated up, it is also not healthy for the system. So you will need to have job placement programs, hiring programs to actually go into here, into the social insurance group, the productive group. And of course, we will also need to help school leavers or new graduates to come up from this social protection system to go into a social insurance system, because we feel that we at SOCSO feel that social insurance is a much more sustainable way of protecting people. So in conclusion, I would like to say that there are gaps in our social protection system in Malaysia, meaning that if some people may not be covered by any form of private insurance, and sometimes there are cases where people who are not captured by the SOCSO net, and they might fall through into the social protection net, and even further down into the problem. And that's where sometimes it's unfortunate that other agencies or NGOs have to come in place to help them, or sometimes they ask for donations or derma from relatives. So it's actually quite sad that these things are still happening in Malaysia. And if you look into it, there's no equal distribution of wealth in terms of old age, where we need to have to support, where the rich people would support the poorer group of people. But apart from that, I would also need to point out that there is a big difference between, you want to distribute. There is a big difference between equality and equity. Yeah. So I have a picture on the left here. Equality means everyone is given the same box, but some people are not as privileged as others. So the same box would not assist the non-privileged person. But we also need to look at equity, an equitable system, where if you look into this side, the less fortunate would be given the advantage so that they would be equal again. Yeah. So and the thing is that when we want to reform this social protection system, the time is now, because the longer we wait, the harder for us to implement. Because if you remember the slide on demographics, if the working population is to shrink too much, we may no longer have enough funds to support the whole system. Yeah. And we need to create a social security ecosystem to ensure that no one gets left behind. And we have to ensure that social justice and equal opportunity for everyone. And remember, security is not a cost, but it is an investment. And although we've been hearing a lot of words on sustainability, yes, 5 years ago, I always talk about we need to have a sustainable system, but today, you need to have a sustainable system, but yet we need to provide enough benefits so that people would be the social protection system would stay relevant to the Malaysian population. So without further ado, Dr. Sham, I'm giving back the floor to you. I hope I've done justice this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edmund. Very interesting presentation. I hope we have more time to discuss later. Thank you for speaking to us about SOCSO and highlighting the gaps and challenges in our social framework. protection framework. So we will discuss this further in the next round. And I would also like to remind the participants, if you have any question, you may type in the chat box and I will discuss the question during the Q&A session or in the next round. So let us move to our last panelist from Indonesia, Dr. Alin Halimatu. Okay, Dr. Alin is an active lecturer at the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia since 2004. She received her doctoral degree from Universitas Indonesia in 2013 with a focus area on natural resources and environmental economics. Since 2017, she has been trusted as the head of Environmental Economic Research Group at the Institute of Economic and Social Research LPEM, Faculty of Economics and Business of Universitas Indonesia. She has experience in many research topics, particularly on renewable energy economics and policy, sustainable waste management, sustainable fisheries management, disaster risk reduction, climate finance, and green growth. She held certifications on renewable energy financing, impact investing, sustainable finance, and sustainable reporting. So without further ado, let me invite Dr. Alin. Dr. Alin, the screen is yours now.
Okay, thank you Ibu Syam for your kind introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to share my slide first. So can you see my slide?
Yes, very clear, Dr. Alin.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It was very interesting to hear previous presenters discussing about social protection policy, risk management, particularly the case of Malaysia. And now I would like to share my thoughts about how the condition in Indonesia regarding the sustainable livelihood and comprehensive social protection. Okay, this is my outline. Firstly, I would like to discuss about the link between climate and disaster risk and poverty. And then I would like to give a brief on current social protection scheme in Indonesia, and then discussing some gaps. First gap is about program coverage. And then the next one, how to harmonizing or aligning social protection with sustainable recovery. And then the next one is the problem of database, and the typical problem for developing countries is about financing gap. And I would like to highlight also some key points about the ways forward. Okay, first is how we can understand the link between climate disaster and poverty. So nowadays we are facing this pandemic, which also have a strong linkage to our well-being, but a persistent problem that we face now and in next future is climate risk and disaster risk also. So all of this maybe pandemic cycle, climate risk and disaster risk make us live in uncertain world, and then it will brings risk and then later on damage to our lives in terms of human damage and also economic damage. For human damage, we can see like two categories: fatalities and injuries. And for economic loss, it usually translated into loss of livelihood and loss of asset. All of this will bring to the impact to our well-being, and later on we will see a very fast dynamic on the poverty rate in our country. So people move out and in below the poverty level is very dynamic, and how we can make a system that can respond in a fast way to make a good safety net for this situation. Okay, so this is just brief, yeah, a brief graph discussing about the relation between this climate and disaster and how would it impact our welfare in terms of human and economic loss, and then how social protection program can respond to this and become the cushion, yeah, for the impact that we have. We can see from this column for each sectors, the connection between ministries is very important, yeah, because in some cases we have we need to give fast response, yeah, so we need to provide a very timely and updated data, yeah, to give this fast response, particularly for disaster type. There is like earthquake, for example, but for droughts, there is like a long period of damage. It can be different, but sometimes we have to work fast on this data and then also make this response. And then the response itself, not only for fast response, but we need also to create programs that is more comprehensive than that to make build back better. So we try to increase their livelihood at least to the pre-disaster condition. And a lot of work need to be done, not only this fast recovery, but also reconstruction and rehabilitation. And mostly in Indonesia, the program is more focused on this fast response. We need a more comprehensive program on how to recover their livelihood, how to recover their physical asset, not only actually private physical asset, but also public infrastructure, because in many cases, the livelihood of a community can be recovered if only this private and public infrastructure recover. Yeah. So if we look at this graph, I just want to give a simple classification on poverty alleviation program. To alleviate poverty, it is simply an effort either to reduce the cost of living or increase welfare or income. Yeah, and in Indonesia, in the 90s, mostly the policy is about price control, yeah, price control like for fuels and then also for staple food, but now move to giving subsidy, yeah. So we want to make a more targeted program giving subsidy to the poor and vulnerable, giving many kind of support. And then we move on since the early 2000, the subsidy also move on from a commodity, subsidy to commodity, to subsidy to household or individual, like using cash transfer. Because from our evaluation, there are many problems of mistargeting subsidies, and we believe that by moving out from subsidy to the commodity to subsidy to directly to the person, it makes them quite flexible in coping, yeah, with their problem. And then the next one is how to support their livelihood by giving some kind of like microcredits, yeah. So after they alleviated from poverty, yeah, so near above the poverty line, they need asset, like produce capital or increasing in their skills, human capital. So how they can be an independent individuals or household that can make their livelihood more sustainable. This what Indonesia still have very much agenda on this. So not many programs evaluated is effective, but for cash transfer, it is, I think, quite progressive in terms of data, in terms of the design, but for increasing the livelihood, we still have many problems on that. This is the main social protection program in Indonesia. So we have energy subsidy, the old scheme, and it lasts until now. It covers like 40%, of the household. It's quite a huge amount of money because it is covered like 23 millions of household. The next one is PKH. It covers health and education for poor household. And then for insurance, we also have health insurance through BPJS Kesehatan. It covers 130 million people. Actually, the most updated data, this is, I think the old data, the most updated data is we already cover 220 million people. I think this is the most largest health insurance, maybe in Southeast Asia, because we have many population here. And then we also have social protection scheme for education, and I think the recent one is for higher education, so not only elementary until high school, but also for higher education. For basic food, we also have, and then the newest one is this. We have a village fund to support household. But the scheme is through village transfer. So the village administrative who distribute these funds to the poor household. And then this is also a new one, Kartu Prakerja, that support almost 6 million people through job training and income support. But this is a new design for Kartu Prakerja, and many critics comes to this Kartu Prakerja. And then we also support MSMEs, because in this pandemic, many SMEs go bankrupt, and then the government give these funds to these sectors. And then also salary subsidy, this is also new, and the cash transfer. The cash transfer is actually an old scheme, but it continuously evolving in the design. So we have the newest scheme of cash transfer to almost 10 million people. So some of the challenge in implementing a comprehensive social protection program. The first is about program coverage. So the problem with all of the program that we introduce is most of them is about poverty eradication, but less for sustainable livelihood. Okay, so we have, for example, a scheme for small business through microcredits, but until now the evaluation is the business operation is more on the survival mode rather than growth mode. So I think we need more comprehensive design. So not only to give capital for this small business, but also skills or access to market or support for like digitalization, yeah, and others. The next one is very few uptake on the livelihood-related social insurance, for example, for farmers and fishermen. And we know that this climate change and also disaster affected these groups, yeah, and then it also affect our food security. And in Indonesia, these two groups become the most vulnerable groups, yeah, farmers and fishermen, and we need to upscale the current scheme of weather insurance, or we call it asuransi nelayan, ya, fisherman insurance and farmers insurance, yeah. And then the next one is, this is, I think, the initiation is quite long about labor training program, but since the pandemic, this program become a very huge program, but the design is not too well, yeah. And then the most problematic problem is we cannot ensure that this unemployment person can get the jobs after the labor training program. This is the problem. And then the next one is about adaptive social protection. Indonesia is a country that is prone to disaster and climate change impact. And this current pandemic forced us to think how the social protection system can be agile, yeah, to respond to fast dynamic of people moving in and moving out of poverty, yeah, as well as making sustainable livelihood by increasing the resilience of people in the era of this uncertainty era, yeah. So under this kind of situation, we really need a real-time database on our system to accommodate this fast changing in poverty. So we can apply like on-demand application system for social protection. Actually, we have already this updating data system, but the process is too long and too bureaucratic, yeah. So if, for example, I apply for this, I'm now poor people, and then I can get the assistance maybe like 6 months later or a year later, yeah. So it's too long. That's why the current system is not prepared, yeah, to respond to the current crisis that need fast response, yeah, particularly in identifying the impacted parties. Yeah, okay. So, and most of this program, it seems that it's like one size fits for all, yeah, and not so many program can be customized. And we know this, the problem of Indonesia is a country with a very diverse situation, and maybe the regulation should accommodate, yeah, the flexibility in customizing the program in various area. So yeah, from this graph we can see that the poverty rate and also the vulnerable population is mostly come from nature-based or primary sectors, yeah, in forestry, agriculture, livestock, plantation, and fisheries, yeah. So maybe the program also need to incorporate these sectors, yeah. And then one of the sectors that we one of the program that we have is social forestry that aims to meet the ecological objectives as well as social objective, yeah. So the government of Indonesia actually has set an ambitious target of 12 million hectares to be managed by local communities, and then but the realization now is only like 5 4 to 5 million hectares. And I think if this program is well managed, it can be a potential program to reduce poverty and also conserve our forests and other things to make a sustainable livelihood. We need to also link the microcredit, for example, and labor skill enhancement to our aims to support green sectors, like circular economy or renewable energy, like waste collection or recycling activities. I think it is also potential to be integrated in the livelihood sustainability program. And then the next problem is about the database. We already have a unified database, as the basis of social assistance program. But the problem is there's still we can still find a fragmented program across ministries that are not using this unified database. For example, insurance for farmers and fishermen don't use this unified database for housing support also. So there is a need to sit down these related ministries that give support, for social protection and also sustainable livelihood, and how to make the best use of this unified database. And then the last one is the challenge of this financing. Like maybe like many other countries in the global south, we face a very huge challenge in financing the social protection program. Actually, in Indonesia, since the early 2000s, the interest to make a good and comprehensive social protection program was there, but and it reflected in the state budget allocation that is increasing over time, but still considered low if we compare to our GDP. And then now a larger portion of intergovernmental transfers goes to the provincial, district, and also even village. We have village fund, and I think with this larger portion, the role of local government become more important. So in this social protection program, the local government need to develop a good scheme that is fits for their region, specific needs for their region. And then the next one is the need to increase the upscale the beneficiaries due to COVID. So because now many people become poor, become vulnerable, and then the amount of money that we need also increase, and then we have this fiscal problem because even before pandemic, our tax ratio decreasing for the last decades, I think, and now it's below 10% of GDP. I think it's quite low. So we have to be creative in how to generate revenue, for example, from carbon tax, or maybe like a natural resource based tax, or like plastic waste excise, something like that, that also have objective to change behavior, but also generating revenue, and then we can spend that money to social protection program. This is like 4 key uptakes from my presentation. First is we need more comprehensive social assistance program to support sustainable livelihood, and the second one we need to strengthen coordination among ministries, agencies, local government to reduce list fragmented programs. And then we need credible, updated, unified, and digitalization of database. And the last one is we need to mobilize public and non-public financial source to support social protection program. Thank you very much, Bu Syam. I'm sorry, I have a background sound here.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Alin. So now we have to move really quickly to round two. I think I will combine this round with the questions from the participants from FB, from Zoom, because we have lots of questions over here. So I try to combine those questions with my questions so that we can answer it at once. So because some questions are kind of redundant, so I think I start with Diara. It was mentioned, Dr. Diara, in your presentation that sustainable livelihood consists of 5 dimensions, right? Financial capital, human, social, physical, and natural capitals. These are all important elements to ensure that people can survive shocks and stress without jeopardizing others. So in your opinion, Diara, what is the most important element for one to survive during the pandemic?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Syam. Thank you, Dr. Syam, for that question. Right. What is the most important element to survive the pandemic? I don't think there is one important element, but then when we talk about COVID-19, okay, we are talking about COVID-19, it really hit us hard, yeah, and it is a global shock. We have seen the impact of pandemic on economies with causes like scarcity of resources, and this relates back to our sustainable capitals. We have heard about public health system collapse due to insufficient human and financial capitals, and then cases among the developing countries where economies struggle with their public health, social and economic responses. In our country itself, Malaysia, we've gone through a series of MCO, and then we dispatch over number of daily cases. When we go back at the evening, the first thing we do is check what is the daily number of cases today. But it's higher than yesterday, and I was like, oh man, this is so bad. So we have higher cases of people suffering from depressions and people being retrenched, losing their jobs. All these are impacts to our sustainability. So in my opinion, in order for us to survive during this pandemic crisis, all 5 capitals are equally important to rebound, okay? And if we are to focus on this pandemic risk, okay, the main thing that we need to look at is our build back strategy. How do we recover from it? And in this instance, we need to mobilize all 5 capitals. We need the human capital, the expert, okay? We need maybe more expert, more doctors, more scientists to deal with it. And then we need the financial capital. We need more financial resources to reinforce the public system, to finance the vaccination program that we are currently doing now. We need to financial resources to revitalize the economic system. We need the social capital, the safety net assistance to those in need, to those who are very vulnerable to the crisis, the social system in terms of sharing information and resources, the support system, like safety and security to the communities. And then we need the physical capital in terms of the infrastructure, especially those related to public services. And then we need to ensure equal access to all. And of course, natural capital. Like we might think, what does natural capital has to do with this, right? It is COVID-19. But then think again, because natural capital is about the forest, the land, the soil, the water, everything. But then these are alternative, okay? These are alternative that provide other means of living. Like now we know many people are out of job. So we could utilize natural capital for living, for means of living, like people go to for farming, fishing, etc. So I don't think it's fair to single out one capital as it is. But then it is all five capitals are equally important. It has to be mobilized to survive and recover from this pandemic crisis. Right. So
Okay. Okay, so meaning that we cannot just pick one capital, saying that this is the most important one during the pandemic is equally important, right?
yeah, it's good important. Yes.
Okay, back to Edmund. It's about the social protection floor, because perhaps some of the participants haven't heard this term before, the social protection floor. So when I read to the question by the participant, I've attracted to read one question from Dr. Janjan from UUM. So she asked about, do you think that the concept of universal basic income will actually work? Do you think it can be practically implemented as social safety net?
The universal basic income is a very interesting concept. I mean, everybody's been talking about universal basic income, or UBI, or unconditional basic income. Comes many names: citizens basic income guarantee, and so on. But when we talk about the social protection floor, we need to agree on certain things first. What is the poverty line in Malaysia? What is the minimum that you should live on? Yeah. So, and if you can define such a line, then I would say it's really doable, because there are some welfare arrangements that can be viewed as a basic income. For example, I mean, if you want to look, many countries have something like a basic income for children. And pensions may also seem as a universal basic income. So if you want to look into these kind of things, basically you need to define the whole life cycle approach. What is the minimum line, and how much that we need to actually look into to compensate this kind of basic income. If you're interested, you could read something like the Bolsa Familia in Brazil. Yeah, Bolsa Familia in Brazil is a conditional and a concentrated quasi basic income system for the poor. Yeah, this is something that you can read about. It's called Bolsa Familia, Bolsa Familia. You can also read about the I think there's something called the Tamarat program in Sudan or something like that, and these have actually targeted to specific groups in economic crisis. But again, you need to classify which group should actually get this UBI, or else if everybody wants to depend on this UBI, then who's going to fund the tax base to actually to do it? So again, I would say if you go back to the structure, you remember the pyramid, the UBI should be a form of social protection floor, which is the bottom of the pyramid, which is a catch-all net, meaning that if you fall out from the social insurance system or the private system, that would be the last net that catch you lah. And when to define the UBI itself, the quantum of the UBI is also very interesting, because it should be it should not be too much that we are overcompensating, because you do not want to create incentive to incentivize the whole structure, if you get what I mean. Thank you.
Okay. So do you mean that if we are able to classify things up, and it is feasible thing to do? Is it feasible? I mean, yeah, it's providing we have a good
this is a personal opinion. This is a personal opinion. I mean, we have the BRIM before. Yeah, we have the BRIM. We have the BSH, we have the various bantuan, and I think those are a couple of billion ringgit, which we could classify to target to actually assist people. And of course, we could also look into looking into the other subsidies and restructure these other subsidies to meet this UBI lah. Okay. Because for example, let me give you an example. If a family of four, a husband and a wife, well, when we first started working, maybe our combined income would be enough. But the thing is that salary increases with experience. It does not increase with children. So basically, when you have children, sometimes people fall below the basic income, yeah, because they need to compensate all this. So I think it is wise sometimes that we should restructure some support services or the social protection law to compensate so that we could give some amount of allowance to these new families. For example, we will give you 100 ringgit for each children as long as you send your child to a kindergarten, a taska or a tadika. So that would actually, we tie other benefits to improve to improve the society lah. Because if you just give 100 ringgit just like that without any taska or tadika or kindergarten, it does not help the children. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We go back to that later. Let me ask Dr. Alin. Concerning that as well, Dr. Alin, in Indonesia, perhaps we have, please, if I say something wrong, please correct me. In Indonesia, you have conditional cash transfer, right? Yeah. Could you please elaborate that? Is that kind of to guarantee certain minimum income to the people in Indonesia? On how do you think these measures help in reducing the impact of the current pandemic? So how long it's already been in the system?
Yeah, I think for the last few years, we developed this conditional cash transfer. So the idea is to give cash to the household, but they have to do something, particularly on the education. So we want to make sure that their children goes to school. This is also to make, intergenerational poverty is removed. So we hope that their children will be moved out from poverty because this education. So we call it program PKH, Family Hope Program. So the government provides some kind of assistance or mentor, like supervisor, to regularly check this household whether the children's going to school or not, and then also give assistance on the family financial planning and other kind, and many ideas to be put in as the conditionality, but including the environmental aspect, like for farmers, for farmers or for fishermen, how to make sure they don't get or don't catch the fish using unsustainable gear, for example. So, but the current conditionality is education for their children.
Can you please elaborate more on the effectiveness of the program so far in Indonesia in combating the impact of pandemic? So when we're talking about social protection, actually it's a long-term strategy, must be sustainable. But, sometimes because this is unprecedented, this pandemic, so how far that these programs have been effective in control the bad impact of the pandemic?
Yeah, so the problem is this data. I think the data and also the financing problem, because actually from the design itself is already for the cash transfer. For the very basic program, we already established a good data, but how we update the data to accommodate the current pandemic is very, I think, not good or very bad. Because in a regular system, there is a on-demand application, but the problem is the verification is too long, and we need also this very timely update for disaster, and this is the problem, and then also the coverage. So our social protection our basic social protection scheme can cover 40% of population. So the most least, 40%, like 4 decile of population, but it depends on the program. For electricity and the gas subsidy, it covers 40%, but for like PKH only 20%. For health insurance, I think 35%. So it different between programs. But another program it is still fragmented, like insurance for farmers and fishermen is not included in this data, so not using this data. So I don't know whether the Ministry of Fisheries have its own data, but still, so we have a set of basic social protection which is quite good, but how to incorporate other program. And the next one, the next problem is how to link this microcredit and labor support program to make them independent. So the design is mostly for like cash transfer or other support, but the problem of their livelihood, I think the program is still need to be redesigned, to be like more comprehensive, meet the market needs and other kind of that aspect.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alin, for that. Let me ask Edmund again. This is concerning the aging population. We are moving towards aging population. Like Japan is already facing that problem. And do you think we're facing old age security gap in Malaysia?
Yes, we are. Malaysia is not classified as an aging population anymore, but we are an hyper-aged nation. We are excelling our old age even faster than France and Japan. So that's why in my conclusion I say that the time is now. And if we do not do this in time, we do not review this in time, we will definitely have a big gap in the old age protection. For example, I would say that it is better for now that you are in the government service because you're getting pension, because the pension supports you. But at the same time, is the pension system sustainable? And again, that is one thing because it only applies to 1.7 million of the population. But bear in mind, 22%, there's about 7 to 8 million who's in the private sector who contributes to KWSP, and about close to 60-70% may not have adequate old age savings, because when we designed the EPF, our mortality age was actually at the age of 65. So people are now living 10 years beyond that 65 age. And apart from that, we also have the group who are self-employed. Self-employed, they are not mandatorily contributing to KWSP, and that again is another big chunk of number. Like for example, the fishermen, the golongan petani, the people who are self-employed, who are doing this informal work. So it is a very, very big problem, and we need to actually create a much more comprehensive policy that we make sure that these people are covered. So going back to the social protection floor, it would be good to have a tax-funded system to actually support, or at least have a very basic amount for these people to survive. Because if these people don't have enough savings, they would either borrow land or steal, you see. So it's going to be a big problem in the future. It impacts our economy, it impacts our social life, it also impacts the politics as well. So it is important that we look into addressing these problems.
All right.
Dr. Sham,
yes.
Sham, may I add on Edmund's point?
Yes.
Yeah,
you
on
may,
the old age.
relate that to the risk management of individual for old age protection, perhaps.
It is indeed. Old age is a risk, but kalau dalam masyarakat umur panjang tu rezeki kan. It is indeed blessing and risk itself. So with risk management concept, old age is a risk not in terms of old age itself yang umur panjang tu, but the risk is when we are talking about the financial resources, like Mr. Edmund said, when we don't have enough to support us during the old age, because we know when people, old age people are those warga emas, 65 years and above, so they are basically out of job already. So the question is, do they have enough financial support during that years? So in this case, with risk management, we have this needs analysis. So this need analysis, you have to do it now. So this is the prevention strategy. You have to do it now before you pension, before you reach your old age. You have to look at everything that you have, your income now, your asset, your property, your investment, whatever you have now, that you can accumulate and see if you have accumulated enough so that you could use that as your funds to support your old age risk. That is the risk management strategy to manage your risk of old age. And like Edmund said, it has to start now. You cannot wait until you reach 65, then only you start. You cannot say like, oh, I'm a civil servant, I can use my gratuity fund. No, your gratuity fund is not enough. So you start now. When you are still in employment, you do your needs analysis, okay? You start planning, like the slides Edmund show, like from womb to tomb. You start planning for yourself, you start planning for your children. So you need to build your cash nest, your funds, to help you with your old age risk. So that's from the risk management side.
So meaning that you should know how to manage your finances, right?
Yes.
So that you can use the fund later on when you're old. But even today, those in public services, they got protected somehow. Those in private services, those who got retrenched, even though they have money in EPF, for example, Employee for Provident Fund. Under ICNR, for example, they can take out the money because of this pandemic. They need fund to survive. That's why this is quite hot debate whether you should take out your money from EPF or not. That is for your future. But you know, some people are just not as fortunate as other people. So perhaps to take out money now is the best way for them. Hopefully that is the best way for them now, and they can still, you know, contribute back to the fund for the future protection. So let me move back to Dr. Alin. How about in Indonesia concerning the security for older people? So do you have kind of like you have to put certain fund when you work and then can be used when you're old?
Yes, we have BPJS ketenagakerjaan ya, ketenagakerjaan. I don't know exactly detail of the system, but we put funds there, and then if we get pension, we can take our funds, yeah. But I don't know whether it can translate it into like a routine payment for us, yeah. But the problem is the people who uptake this program is still low because we still have many informal workers, and most of the workers that put their funds, it depends on the employer, yeah. So most of the informal workers don't join this program. It different from BPJS Kesehatan. So we have a very huge membership, like more than 200 million for BPJS Kesehatan, but for BPJS Ketenagakerjaan only 50 million, yeah, 50 million covered by BPJS Ketenagakerjaan. So we still have problem for this pension fund, and also for unemployment insurance, we don't have that also. But yeah, like social protection for elderly is very, like disabled people also. So we still have agenda on that. We have a specific program like cash transfer for elderly, but the scale is too small, very small. So I think, yeah, we still need to work hard on that.
It seems that there are many gaps that we have to still fill up, Dr. Alin, for Indonesia and some for Malaysia as well. Back to Dr. Alin, I mean, the answer from Dr. Alin, and also the question from FB Live from Dr. Hasniza concerning the gig worker, because Dr. Alin said the informal sector worker is not covered. Okay, similarly, I think this happening in Malaysia. That Edmund showed from the slide, we have the large portion of those in this group, self-employed, informal workers, and also the gig workers, the contract workers, all these workers in this category. So how can we protect them, Edmund?
When we saw this happening back in 2017, I mean, earlier on, we saw that there is a migration from formal sector to the informal sector, or the gig economy at the time. Uber was one of the leading companies at the time, and now we have Grab, we have Foodpanda, and so on. When we first started that coverage, and we push for it. When we were selling it at about 100 ringgit for the lowest social insurance package, people, or the gig economy, the self-employed, didn't really buy or look into into contributing to the social insurance, because they say that I don't have the money for it. Even though we say it's only 20 cents or 40 cents a day, contribute 20 cents or 40 cents a day. It's just a collection of 20 cents or 40 cents a day. You can be covered by SOCSO, but they say they will always use I'm kais pagi makan pagi, meaning that I only make an income for the day. So I would prioritize of buying the essentials like rice, food, and so on before I would actually look into social insurance. So that was actually a big problem. So we are now going into much more innovative ways where we are trying to make it accessible, where we are trying to speak with these platforms, that for every transaction or business transaction that they make, a small percentage go over to for Pekeso. And this could be something that we want to do it. For example, if you take a motorbike, you ride from point A to point B, 20 cents is being deducted for social protection. So these are the things that we are trying to encourage. And at the same time, we are also speaking to their registration groups. Like, for example, the fishermen in Malaysia, we have LKIM, Lembaga Perikanan, right? So we speak to these agencies to say that we need to do some advocation to these people so that they would contribute. And right now, what they are trying to do is that to be members of this so-called fishermen associations and so on, they are putting aside where the association would actually help to contribute for these fishermen. So we are targeting these bigger groups. But I foresee that with technology, there's something that we could replicate. I think this was being done in Cameroon. In Cameroon or Nigeria. It's a very interesting concept, and we are trying to experiment this in Malaysia as well. For example, they are actually covering housewives. So how do you actually cover housewife, or you cover the informal worker? Is that everybody in Cameroon or Nigeria has a mobile phone. Yeah, they have a mobile phone, and what they do is that when you register for a mobile phone, or when you buy a prepaid top-up for your calls, a small portion of it, without knowing, goes into social protection. So when everyone uses the mobile phone, it's like they're actually being protected. So we are trying to create these innovative ways for our informal sector to start contributing for social insurance.
I think awareness is also important. awareness among these workers, you know, to contribute, even though we have the system, I think it's voluntarily. So some people, they opt not to contribute, right? So I think we have to increase awareness among these informal workers. Of course, they have this concept, kais pagi, makan pagi, but if you can put certain money inside the fund, it will be beneficial for you in the future. So Diara, what do you think about risk management among these informal workers? I mean, what else can be done? How can we make them understand the importance of risk management?
I think this is the challenge in risk management among the society, the communities, where when we said risk management, it is still a daunting concept, menakutkan. So they were thinking like risk management is just for big corporations, not just for me. But then the truth is risk management is for everyone. Okay, it's not just for big corporations. It's for everyone. It's for personal risk. It's for individuals. It's for us, and it is not difficult to do it. It's just for, in a layman terms. Okay, if I may rephrase the word risk management, it is just our backup plans. Okay, it is not in the textbook, but if I may rephrase that in a simplest layman term, it is just backup plans. Okay, what are our backup plans if things happen? What do we have? Okay, if we suffer loss, okay, what is our backups? Do we have funds? Do we have cash to fund our losses? So the things, okay, the challenge here is to enhance risk awareness among our community, among the society. We need more risk awareness programs, okay, so that we could educate our societies, our communities, that risk management is actually for everyone. So when people are having knowledge about this, so they are better prepared. So then another thing, when we said risk management, what comes into mind is insurance. That is like, okay, I'm not, thanks, no thanks. So
Yes, exactly.
yeah, risk management, insurance. So this is, we need a shift in paradigm shift. Okay, we need to change this misconception. These are not bad things. Okay, if you are willing to spend just a little bit more, okay, you might be able to enjoy the benefits in the future. So if we could equip our society with the knowledge, we could increase their awareness, their knowledge, their itulah kesedaran tu kan, then they might be able to like embrace this idea, like when Edmund say it is RM100 punya policy kan, then when they know the importance of it, the benefits that they could get from that RM100, then they will like straightly pay, okay, this is my RM100, or even they can pay RM500, they don't mind when they know the benefits that they could get from that RM100. So the challenge is, how do we educate these people? Even though kais pagi makan pagi pun tak apalah, but when they know what do they get from that RM100, they will definitely be willing to pay for it.
Okay, right. I think I already addressed some of the questions because it's similar question. I already addressed the question from Nur Fatin, already answered by Edmund about social security protection, even among the SME businesses. I mean, we have protection for them. Maybe it's not that comprehensive, but we have that as well. And then some question asking about the poverty reduction intervention by Prof. Usayani, also been answered by Dr. Alin just now. And we have many questions actually, but I'm afraid that we cannot address all the questions because we're running out of time. And now we have another like 15 minutes. So I combine the Q&A session with the last session, the third rounds, not the last session, the third rounds is about the challenges and way forward. Challenges and forward. So, Dr. Alin, what do you see? I mean, what are the possible coverage gap in Indonesia, you think? I think you already presented in your slide the gaps. Perhaps you want to elaborate more on certain things, and also highlighting the biggest challenge for Indonesia in realizing the concept of comprehensive social protection.
Yeah, thank you. I think first is we have to invest in a good data, and also a fast and cheap updating system, because of this changing situation. The dynamic of vulnerable people will be very fast, and we need to give fast response also to that situation. So like using like digital device, like biometric, on I don't know about these things, but the technology support will help this process, and we should invest on that. And after that is a good design, so we have to like streamline the program, so it is not fragmented and using the same data. And then the next one is financing problem. Financing problem maybe is is very a huge challenge for us, and how to make non-government institution also chip in this program. It's also important. That's all maybe from me.
So many is not just the role of the government, it's also the role of the private sectors to chip in to help, in addressing these issues and also establish the comprehensive framework. Similarly, like what Edmund said just now, like the Grab driver, perhaps like other body would, also contribute on behalf of the Grab driver, maybe the Grab providers, something like that. So how about Edmund? The same questions. What are the biggest challenges, or what are the gaps that you foresee?
Yeah, I think the problem of social protection has been talked for many years or decades. And I like what Dr. Alin said, intergenerational poverty. That's what she's been saying. And this reminds me of what we had in Pertiwi Soup Kitchen. It's a soup kitchen in KL. And a friend of mine who works at the Pertiwi Soup Kitchen was saying that, Edmund, if you realize we've been serving food for the past 20 years, and now we are serving to the grandchildren of those people we have served 20 years ago. So going back to this example, the reason behind this are happening is because I think the government agencies or the whatever agencies that is linked to social protection, not only delivery agencies like SOCSO, EPF, Jabatan Kebajikan, and so on, but we have to look into even JPN, Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara, which is our national registrar, where we are saying that the reason these people are always in intergenerational poverty is because they are not registered, meaning that they do not have an IC. So when they do not have an IC, we have a problem. But we need a way where we have to improve this kind of things so that we understand. For example, maybe for SOCSO, EPF, Kebajikan, or maybe, yes, we may need the IC, but when it comes to certain assistance, we should not be looking at ICs, but to ensure that help being reached to them, and how we can actually bring them out from this poverty. But a good thing about Malaysia is that finally we have established the Malaysian Social Protection Council, the Majlis Keselamatan Sosial, which is headed by the Prime Minister himself, and we have four main tracks, which is the social protection floor, the SPF, which looks into, we make sure that we do enough stock taking to make sure that we have a universal net to catch everyone. Then we have the social insurance track, which to make sure that those who are in this employment, they contribute to a sustainable social system, which could be an employment injury, which could be unemployment insurance, which could also be the EPF or old age pension kind of system. And of course, we have the third track, which is the labor market initiative, meaning that, remember, if you remember that the slide that I showed you, that people who fall out of the system, if they keep on falling out, they will fall into the social protection floor. And that social protection floor doesn't come from a contribution system, but it comes from a tax base. So it will become very expensive. So you need to have a labor market initiative to bring these people from that group into the social insurance group. And that is very much important. And of course, you have another track which focus on data to make sure that we harmonize these data and to make sure that we do not have possible duplicates in delivering our social protection. So I think we are heading towards the right direction, but the question now is speed lah. How fast can we actually modify or transform this social protection so that Malaysia would be ready in the future?
Okay, it seems like the idea of having the social protection system has been so long, yeah. But what are actually the biggest hindrance? I don't understand much. I mean, we have this idea of having social insurance and employment insurance, all this social transfer and everything. So it's a bit, for me, it's like on paper. So what actually is the biggest hindrance? Is it because of the fiscal constraint by the government, or is it because of the people itself? They don't want to contribute, for example, for voluntary insurance. So actually, what else can be done? It seems like so EPF, the government has everything in place. So it's just not, still can be categorized as not comprehensive enough for some people.
I would say it's multifactorial, Dr. Sham. It's multifactorial, okay. Yeah. And I mean, if you look into when we wanted to introduce the unemployment insurance back in 2018, we did get a lot of resistance from the business community, because when you create an unemployment insurance, we created another form of fund where we needed the employers and the employees to contribute. So we get a lot of pushback saying that why should we contribute for companies who are irresponsive, who have led their workers to be unemployed? You see, so it's the question of moral at that time. But fortunately, we had the system in place, and because of that particular system, that system was the one that actually assisted in the Prihatin, the Pemulih, the Pemerkasa, which is the cash transfer from the government during the COVID-19. If we did not have that platform in place, we would have, in Malaysia, we would have not been ready. And the amount being put into the, that is being subsidized by the government for this Prihatin, Pemulih, and Pemerkasa packages, which is almost equivalent to 70 years of contributions to Pekeso. So if for us, every economical impact will come in every 20 years, but the amount we spent for the pandemic alone, we needed at least 70 years to collect that kind of amount to actually subsidize the whole country.
Okay, in your expert opinion concerning the national health insurance, so is there any room that we can realize that? I mean, the national health insurance similar to that what we have in the UK, for example, because it's not something popular, you know, it requires strong political will to do it. So what do you think?
I think there is a balance that we need to strike. Yeah, because if you look into a Malaysian system, I very much like the Malaysians universal health insurance system, meaning that everyone who comes into the hospital, they are being protected. Yeah, but I would say that we need to create that structure in place. Remember that whole triangle structure, the universal health is the bottom structure, but you will also need to have the social insurance structure to actually to improve from the common class to maybe the second class or the first class. But then if you are willing to pay for a premium for the private medical card, then you would be able to go into the private hospitals. So again, these things are very expensive. I believe that with a national health insurance, you will have a much more sustainable system, meaning that instead of the universal health system hurting the Malaysian tax system. But if we go through a national health insurance system, we would be able to create a much more balance into the whole health system to make it much more sustainable. But that would be my personal opinion, and it would be interesting to hear from our colleagues from health. If you are very much liking to hear into that, I have people who are willing to share with you these ideas on
Yeah,
national
let us
health
work,
insurance.
Edmund, on this one. Okay. Diara, do you have something to say about this? You want to add up on Edmund's point?
All the good points are taken already. uh, but then just a little bit when just to top up on the risk management on from the education side, when I said about enhancing risk awareness and risk education program. So at the university level, we need to increase our effort to reach out to the community to educate them and enhance the knowledge about the importance of risk management, about risk awareness and the benefits they could gain from the process and so forth. And then just by conducting the program is not enough. We have to ensure that this program have to be successful. So that we need to focus on the audience, who are the participants of our program. And the content of the program has to be catered so that it must be easily understood by them, simple and not confusing, because the risk management terms and jargons are quite daunting to people who don't have the basic knowledge for it. So at the very basic newbie levels of understanding, we are teaching them how to identify threats, how to identify dangers, and what are their backup plans. So that they won't feel daunted by the terms risk management anymore. And then, in fact, when we are planning to design risk awareness, risk management program, we need to reach out to people at all level of age, okay, which include school children, okay, kids. For instance, we could also design risk awareness programs that targeted school children, like the primary and secondary schools, okay, so that they could benefit from the knowledge, risk management knowledge from an early age. Like simple program, it does not have to be complicated rocket science thing. Okay, very simple program like road safety. Okay, because our kids, they finish school, we know while they are waiting for their parents, they were crossing the roads like mad. Okay, so we teach them road safety, individual safety and rights. Okay, we have all these issues like what can we call it, harassment, sexual harassment at school. And then we can teach them the importance of savings. Okay, that is the financial elements of it. Managing stress and bully at school. So this would be beneficial to our children, and these are part and parcel of risk management without the word risk management itself. So this our children, okay, the school kids, they gain knowledge, and these are actually risk management at a very personal, individual level. How do you manage your own risk? So this will be enable us, the school children, at a very early age to protect their human capital, social capital, and financial capital. So that's my take.
Okay, thank you, Diara. We have actually many questions on the chat box from FB and also Zoom, but I'm not able to read everything. But just one question that perhaps require explanation from Edmund. Just one before I go around concluding remarks from each of the panelists. About sandwich generation from Dr. Norihan. What is actually sandwich generation?
In a typical structure, it is the parents that take care of the children, yeah?
Okay.
That's the typical family structure. And any family structure, a husband and a wife take care of the children. But because normally the older generation, they would have some savings, they would survive with their savings, and they do not bother their children to give back. Yeah. So that's the typical scenario. But because the older generation are now living beyond the age of, of the what they have saved for, they now don't have enough cash in the future. So because of that, they rely for their children to take care of them. So you see more, it is more common that the middle generation, the productive age, they can no longer focus only on finding money to support their own children, but they will have to support the older people as well, the orang tua as well.
Okay.
So that's actually what we call the sandwich generation. Yeah.
Okay.
So it
Interesting.
will be even worse if we live even longer. Then you get I would say a Big Mac. You will support more than or two generations. Tiga lapis of the bread lah.
But interesting trend from our research, our own research, that when we ask about living arrangement of the elderly, most of the elderly, they would like to live at their own house, not with their children, but yet perhaps they don't have enough funds to support themselves, so the children has still to finance the parents, but they still want to be at the house, not living with the children, right? Perhaps that's the trend now. Okay, now we go to the concluding remark session. So perhaps Dr. Alin can give your concluding remark on this topic on comprehensive social protection model.
Yeah, maybe we can say that this comprehensive social protection model to support sustainable livelihood is very important. It is not only protect current generation, but also future generation. So we need to evaluate maybe the database, the program itself, and then how to finance that to make a better policy regarding this social protection. I think that's
okay. Sweet and simple, Dr. Alin. Okay, Edmund, perhaps 1 or 2 minutes concluding remark.
1 or 2 minutes. I think I've said very much, but I think when we talk about social protection, we have to understand that the difference between adequacy and equality. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Not one size fits all. Yeah, when you have a one size fits all, then when you want to design something like the universal basic income, then that's where everybody collects. You need to have proper categorization to make sure that the right people get the right things. And also when we build a social insurance system, most of the time we talk about sustainability. I mean, yeah, it's fine. 40 years ago, social insurance funds are considered perpetual. Yeah, we've never thought about sustainability, and over the years we are now looking to sustainability, but let's not lose the focus on adequacy, meaning that when you are a social insurance organization, you make sure that you deliver adequate benefits to the right people, or else, what's the point of our existence? We're just giving money, but people are still suffering out there. So in the end, putting this behind, we need to create a sustainable but yet adequate, and to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you very much.
Okay, the keyword is sustainable and adequate, right?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Diara, anything from you? 1 minute?
So the social protection model is indeed a comprehensive model that benefits the vulnerable people to provide them opportunities for a better future. And then with the risk management approach in place, the community will be better equipped to be prepared to handle stress and shocks, threats and risks to their system. And this will ensure sustainable livelihood in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Diara. And thank you very much to all the panelists today, Dr. Diara, Mr. Edmund, Dr. Alin, for sharing your knowledge and insight on these issues, sharing experience. So we learned a lot today, and we know that many more that we have to do in improving the framework, the model of the comprehensive protection model in both countries. So this dialogue is indeed very important for us and for policymakers to understand the crucial need for a comprehensive social protection framework for the country. With that note, I think I end the session. and hand it over to Dr. Shazida. Over to you, Shazida, for closing ceremony. I hope that everyone can stay.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Dr. Shamsa Ifa Samsudin and also all the speakers. Very interesting. I think this is a very important issues to be covered, not only on digitalization, but also how we need to change into the new era. So how we can protect the vulnerable groups that also facing issues in changing the way they are living. Anyway, for the concluding remarks, we were supposed to have Dr. Vivi Yulaswati, but then we still waiting for her because we invited her from the Ministry of Indonesia, so she's still unable to come into Zoom for now. Perhaps we give few minutes more for Dr. Vivi to join us. I hope everyone will stay put and stay with us until we receive the news from Dr. Vivi. I hope everyone just stay on for a while. Maybe perhaps we can play a video for a few minutes before we start the concluding remarks. Thank you, everyone. Or in the meanwhile, perhaps everyone can also fill in the attendance form that we have placed on your chat box, so we can send to you the e-certificates and also the presentation that you have seen from the beginning of Dialogue 1 and Dialogue 2. We will share to everyone using your email that you have shared within the Google form, the attendance Google form. In the meanwhile, sit back, relax, and we'll wait for Dr. Vivi and while watching the video. Thank you. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Thank you very much for being so patient with us. Anyway, Dr. Vivi is with us. Dr. Vivi, please. We hope you. Okay, Dr. Vivi, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we end our Sintok Dialogue for 2021, we're going to hear the concluding remarks, and we're going to give the pleasure to Dr. Vivi Yulaswati. So Dr. Vivi Yulaswati is the Senior Advisor of the Minister of National Development Planning for Social Affairs and Poverty Reduction in Indonesia. Okay, her main responsibility is to do analysis and provide advice to the Minister on social and poverty-related issues, policies and strategies. She currently leads the National Secretariat for Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, She has extensive experience in designing major poverty reduction programs in Indonesia, including community-driven development, conditional cash transfer, and some subsidy reforms. She has major contributions to the development of the National Social Security System, National Strategy for Financial Inclusion, Big Data for Public Policy Research in Global Pass Initiative, government to person G2P payment, as well as integrated service and referral system for comprehensive social protection. She holds a PhD in planning and development from the University of Southern California, a master degree in urban and regional planning for the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a bachelor degree from the University of Indonesia, and took many courses in social protection, financial inclusion, evaluation, change management, and digital transformation. With that, everybody, I'm honored to introduce to you Dr. Vivi Yulaswati. Dr. Vivi, the screen is all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sida, Pak Teguh, yang saya hormati, and also other Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate the Economic School of Indonesia University and the University of the North Malaysia, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, for the collaboration of webinar on revitalizing the economy in the unprecedented times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We learned that, ready or not, we have to implement the SDGs principles toward more balance between the social, economic, and environment to build forward better for the our future development. It is also timely important to discuss together the progress of the SDGs and its challenges, as we already in the decade of action to deliver the SDGs by 2030, which gets underway. Based to Indonesia experience, we also experiencing the recessions and the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. However, we could say that we are able to rescue from economic hard landing by comprehensive stimulus policy and continue to strive the recovery through reform on national health system, the social protection system, the resilient system, and also recovery of industry, tourism, and investment toward the green economy. Without a doubt, we have challenges to localizing SDGs, particularly in the green economy. In the UNESCO's SDGs Progress Report 2021 had showed that the Southeast Asian region has very slow progress for some goals, mainly in relate to the green economy. It includes the affordable and clean energy, the goal 7, the sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and life on land, the goal 15. More worryingly, the Southeast Asia regions is regressing on the achievement of climate actions, goal 13, and then in the goal 14 about the life below water, and peace, justice, and strong institution in goal 17. So integration of the economic, social, and environment dimension is really key for this redesigning the strategies and policy to build forward better. In the spirit of achieving carbon neutrality and circular green economy, for example, Indonesia in the process of preparing the issuance of the SDGs bond, which consists of the social, green, and the blue bond. So this particularly fill in the gap, our SDGs financing gap, which is already huge even before the COVID-19 pandemic. The OECD already estimated the global financing gap for the SDGs has increased around 70% due to the pandemic. It is necessary to explore more on the innovative financing to go beyond traditional financing, and we should go hand in hand to deliver the goals during the decade of action. So from what I learned from the discussions in this event, we learned that it is important about the digital transformation and developing the resilience of people livelihood today. During the pandemic, we witnessed also the digitalization of the cash transfer, the way we work, and also in schools, the digital transformations is a must. And also, context of the SDGs, there is a great need to digitalize all the SDGs data so that we could have better analysis and better plan. In addition, prioritizing the vulnerable and marginalized group is also imperative to accelerate the advancements of some goals and also the targets of SDGs. So we need to keep nurturing our sharing for best practices, knowledge, and technical expertise through all means between countries. I do hope that the collaborations between these two universities continue to strengthen our mutual goals, particularly in accelerating the SDGs advancement. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much to Dr. Vivi. Despite her very busy schedule, she still be with us this afternoon. Thank you again. Now, since we have a collaboration with Universitas Indonesia, it is my honor also to invite Dr. Teguh Datanto to deliver the closing remarks. To you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished speaker, colleagues, and participants, and I would like to thanks to Ibu Vivi Alatas for his remark on these issues. And yeah, I personally work closely with Ibu Vivi for long times. And distinguished speaker, college participant, it is a great pleasure for me to share a few words at the end of this dialogue. Representing the Faculty of Economic and Business, I'm grateful that we have been given a chance to co-organize this event together with the Economic and Financial Policy Institute, School of Economics, Finance and Banking, College of Business, University Utara Malaysia. I believe that everyone who joined this forum has gained knowledge and insight from all the speakers on the experiences from Malaysia and Indonesia on how the economy is being revitalized during the pandemic and the post-pandemic. Indeed, the economy has been hit badly during this pandemic. People lost their jobs, business have to take the new turn in managing their operation, and there is a shift in how society behaves during the pandemic. With the travel restriction and the protocol of avoiding the growth, the way people interact has changed as well. It emphasizes the importance of technology to connect people, particularly the use of the digital platform. Additionally, the pandemic has also given us a lesson to learn in the term of the social protection for all. It has shown that there is a necessity to provide cushion for the vulnerable part of the society in order for everyone to be able to overcome the pandemic. Maybe this is many people unexpected this condition, and maybe we can learn each other what's Malaysia already done and maybe Indonesia already done. We can exchange the idea about this, how to prepare for the future or how to prepare more adaptive social protection in the future. I believe that this dialogue has provided us with the information regarding the best practices, experience, and the way forward from the Malaysia and Indonesia in the revitalizing the economy during the pandemic. It is also expected that this event can also strengthen the relationship between Indonesia and Malaysia, particularly between Universitas Indonesia and University Utara Malaysia, also marked for other joint collaboration in the future. Finally, I would like to express my appreciation for all the participants that have joined this dialogue, for all the speakers who provided us with all the insight, and for the organizer, both from Ecofi UUM and FABUI. I wish that the situation will get better and we might have the opportunity to meet in online dialogue in the future. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, that's also our hope, Dr. Teguh, to meet and also to have the next dialogue, inshallah, here in Malaysia, inshallah. Now, next, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Rusayani Ismail, Dean of School of Economics, Finance and Banking, to deliver her closing remark. Prof. Yani, the screen is yours.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Very good day. Yang Berusaha Dr. Vivi Yulaswati, Senior Advisor for Social Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Ministry of National Development Planning of Indonesia. Yang Berusaha Dr. Teguh Datanto, Acting Dean, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, Associate Professor Dr. Syam Zaifa, Director of Economic and Financial Policy Institute, Ecofi, UUM, Associate Professor Dr. Shazida Jan, Chairman of Sintok Dialogue 2021, Dr. Nurdani, Co-Chairman of Sintok Dialogue, Universitas Indonesia, all the panelists, professors, senior universities, officers, lecturers, and also representative from government and private agency, and not to forget members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the beneficent, the merciful, for it is because of His abundant grace and mercy that have enabled us to assemble here for the closing session of the Sintok Dialogue Ecofi 2021. On behalf of University Utara Malaysia, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for attending this year Ecofi event. Thank you Yang Berusaha Dr. Vivi Yulaswati, Senior Advisor for Social Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Ministry of National Development Planning of Indonesia, for your presence here, and appreciate highly your view and insight in your concluding remarks just now. In addition, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Universitas Indonesia for graciously accepting to collaborate with UUM in hosting the Sintok Dialogue Ecofi 2021. We are deeply honored and for the opportunity to work on such an important event. To Yang Berusaha Dr. Teguh Datanto, the Acting Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business from Universitas Indonesia, thank you for being with us today throughout the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of Sintok Dialogue. I believe that everybody was fully engaged in the discussion and enjoyed the presentation in this virtual symposium. It is my great pleasure to see that within this short period, we were able to discuss various issues related to our main theme, revitalizing the economy in unprecedented times of COVID-19. It is indeed a significant event that provides a platform for the exchange of ideas and thoughts on finding the way forward, and look positively for immediate response to the pandemic, and hopefully this will ensure our economy to be on the right trajectory for recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the School of Economic, Finance and Banking, UUM, I would like to express my appreciation to Yang Berbahagia Datuk Muhammad Umar Sweep, the CEO of Bursa Malaysia, for delivering the keynote and officiating the Sintok Dialogue and to all the panelists for their participation despite their busy schedules, and to all participants and members of the media that have given your support to be here today. Your presence and immense contribution are invaluable and have helped make this event a great success. I would also like to extend our thanks and congratulations to the organizers, Economic and Financial Policy Institute, Ecofi, SFB UUM, and particularly the chairperson, Associate Professor Dr. Shazida, and the secretariats of the dialogues for their tremendous effort in making this dialogue a success. I also would like to again thank our supportive co-organizer, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia. Thank you for accepting our invitation and jointly organize this event. For information, UUM has signed an MOU with the University of Indonesia on the 29th September 2016 with the intention to foster academic collaborations, cooperations, and interaction for further promotion and opportunity in academic activities and research. I hope that through this engagement, through this dialogue that we have, further engagement can be made for us to collaborate in other activities as well. This jointly organized event has proven the benefits that can be exploited by both parties, and we at SFB UUM highly hope this will be extended further in the future, as mentioned by Dr. Teguh just now. As we are aware, the current pandemic is far from over, and the challenges ahead are very tough and uncertain. As many countries now are entering the critical economic phase of recovery, the opportunity for swift economic recovery is very much dependent on the critical role played by all levels in the economy. There is a need to start accepting that the world may no longer work as before, and we need to be ready with the new norms. And not to forget that while embracing the changes, there is a need to ensure sustainable livelihood and to give a proper security to the new way of living. Together, we need to be steadfast in our effort to fight the COVID-19 and rebuild our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that we're going to have the Sintok Dialogue as our annual event. Therefore, we look forward to seeing you again in 2022 when we shall reconvene to discuss other issues affecting the economy, and inshallah, we will explore more collaboration and sharing of experiences for the common good. With this note, Sintok Dialogue 2021 is now declared closed. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Rusayan Ismail, Dean to School of Economics, Finance and Banking, University Utara Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude our Sintok Dialogue at Ecofi 2021 on revitalizing the economy in unprecedented time of COVID-19. On behalf of the organizer, Economics and Financial Policy Institute, School of Economics, Finance and Banking, University Utara Malaysia, together with Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, we'd like to thank you all distinguished guests, invited speakers, and all participants to your presence here. It has indeed been an honor, and we hope you have enjoyed the whole program. We also like to apologize for any inconvenience caused during the whole event. I guess this is the challenges that we face when we transition into digitalization conferences on virtual. Okay, we pray for much better days in the coming future, and perhaps we will have the dialogue in one's conference rooms and meeting each other here in Malaysia, inshallah. And just one reminder, please make sure to fill the form, the attendance form, using the Google link in our chat box, in your screen, before exit the Zoom link, and we will later provide you with the attendance e-certificate. With that, Stay safe, everyone. I'm Shazida signing off with Assalamualaikum warahmatullah and have a great day ahead.